Okay, so Trump held up a Bible when he stood outside of the St. John Church, and that was during the time of the rigmarole with all the BLM and all the other stuff. And obviously, he was trying to drop a hint, and it's interesting that the Jesuits were very upset with him. The evangelicals were upset with him for not holding up a King James version of the Bible, but he held up the Revised Standard Version. So I looked it up and I'm like, you know what? Why would he choose that Bible? And it's not just because he couldn't find a better Bible or no, everything he does when it's a photo op, that is on purpose. So I look it up, and obviously if, Protestants and, devout people that love the Lord, they're going to get upset for using that Bible if you're going to quote from it, especially relating to Luke 1 and the prophecies of Isaiah, specifically about, Our Lady, the Blessed Mother, the Theotokos, having to be a virgin. That's the earmarker that proves that Jesus is the Mashiach, the Messiah. So naturally, we're going to be upset about that if we're having a theological roundtable about it, but we're not. This is a photo op, and this RSV Bible, when you look at it, I did a query into several search engines on it, and I just said, what is distinctly different about the RSV? And what it says compared to other Bibles, it says in the late 40s or early 50s or somewhere there, I'm just doing this off a paraphrased memory from my earlier look at it, that it was the first Bible to have quoted from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Because they had just been discovered.
Correct. So, and not only that, at that time, they were translating the Apocrypha into English for us. So now this, when I went and clicked on to the Dead Sea Scrolls, what did it say? It says, the Dead Sea Scrolls that are essentially the body of writings dealing specifically with, let me just see if I could find the terminology, because I took a picture of it on my phone, because I'm like, there's no way, this is not by accident. This was not by accident. Okay, so, I'm on the wrong. Let me grab this phone and see if it's on this particular photograph pile here. Okay, it's going to be on this one. Okay, fair enough. So in here it says right here, on Britannica.com, it says in 1928, the copyright of the American Standard Version was acquired by the International Council of Religious Education and thereby passed into ownership of churches representing 40 major denominations in the United States and Canada. A 2-year study by a special committee recommended a thorough revision, and in 1937, the council gave its authorization to the proposal. Not until 1946, however, did the revision of the New Testament appear in print, and another 6 years elapsed before the complete Revised Standard Version was published. The RSV was the work of 32 scholars, one of them Jewish, drawn from the faculties of 20 universities and theological seminaries. A decision to translate the Apocrypha was not made until 1952, and the revision appeared in 1957. Insofar as the RSV, here it is, was the first version to make use of the Dead Sea Scroll of Isaiah. It was revolutionary. That is the marker why, in my opinion, he held up the Bible. So I click on Dead Sea Scroll, and this is what it says. Let me see if I could get to that picture here. I had to blow it up. That's why I can't just push the picture. Okay. All right, so it says here, Britannica.com. I'm just seeing if this is the one. Here it is. A great number and variety of manuscripts were discovered at Qumran. The best preserved documents at the site are those found in Cave 1, including in Isaiah scroll, the Rule of the Community, also called the Manual of Discipline, the War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness, or War Scroll, a scroll of thanksgiving hymns and commentary on Habakkuk. Cave 2 contained only 2 fragments. Cave 3 yielded the Copper Scroll, which is amazing. I did a whole study on that, by the way, once before. a list of temple treasures and their hiding places, amazing, since Jeremiah, all of that stuff. And then cave 4 sheltered the main deposit of what some believe to have been an Essene library, which contained approximately 400 manuscripts, generally in poor condition, etc. So this is the meat and potatoes, though, right here. It says the meat and potatoes are the manual of discipline, the war of the sons of light against the sons of darkness. This isn't the war of darkness against the sons of light. It's the other way around. It's us waging war against them.
Yeah.
You see? Trump is dropping the clue using that RSV Bible. He knows. He knows what's going on. He knows what's going on. And he's trying to drop a clue like Reagan, in 1983 proclaimed the year 1983 is the year of the Bible. Well, what came across that poor man's desk, He had to freak out. He had to have seen something, which I believe I have the documents that came across his desk where he panicked. And he's like, you know what? We're in deep trouble, and there's only one way out, and that's Jesus. And the Bible's clear about that every knee will bow. That's it. I'm saying knows in the subconscious. Not everyone has it. It didn't click for everybody in the brain yet, but in that subconscious awareness, it's utterly, utterly true. And then I was in the conversation with my sister this morning. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. She just didn't know what to say. My poor sister, she didn't even know what to say. So we're talking about, videos that we're watching on the Tartaria stuff. And again, like I've been saying, I've been studying for this stuff for like 2.5 years, and I'm trying to make sense of it, and I'm trying to understand why did they suppress this information? Why is it on the front cover of Henry Kissinger's book? Why did they hate Putin for sticking the map of Tartaria in the camera in 2013? Why do they hate him for sticking that in the camera? What is it about this Tartaria business? Well, and then of course the video that was just done on the expose into Luke 16, and then I love Mari. I love him. I love Mari, as we talked about. I love him. If out of all the ones out there, he's the only one I know of that has the level of courage to stand up within the Eastern branch, within Orthodoxy, to stand up ruthlessly for the truth. Thank God. And of course, within the Western side, Vigano, awesome guy. I love him. I love it. But when the liturgy just occurred, and that reading came out on Luke 16, here it is, that whole gospel was lopped off. It was ripped out. And it's like, why did you read from half of it and then the other half you didn't read from it? It's like, okay, and I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying that the bishop is the one that created the horologion or the readings for the, liturgy. I'm not picking on him that way. I'm just saying I find this utterly fascinating that there was no explanation for this about the everlasting habitations. And when you study the Greek, directly out of the Greek, it says eternal habitations. So if Jesus is commanding in Luke 16 to become friends with unrighteous mammon, so that in the day that you fail, they will receive you into eternal dwellings, okay, there's something to be said about that. In all these many years since 2009, I've been reading that particular chapter with I'm just confounded by it. I'm like, wait a minute. I need to know what this means. I need to know what this means. So in this conversation with my sister, I was like, you know what I think is going on? There's others out there doing videos, and they're talking about Anatoly Fomenko, an amazing fellow that's dealing with the historical side of this, and he's talking about different timelines, and it's pretty darn complicated because it's volumes and volumes set, like a many volume set. You have to buy it, and it's lots of money to probably buy it. And he teaches it at the Moscow University. So here it is, this Anatoly guy, he's bringing up the aspect of, wait a minute, there's some kind of salvation story that happened before Jesus came in the flesh. But I don't believe, and I'm not too sure that his conclusions are I'm not settled with his conclusions. But here's what I'm getting. Before Jesus became human, with human genetics in the Virgin Mary, before he became flesh, He was the Word. The Word is the angelic form of Jesus. They call him angel of the Lord in many different translations and texts. That's why he holds the title, the Son of Man and Son of God, because he's both. He's species. His species is, he's automatically in his own class, obviously, because he's in the triune God, the bosom of the triune God. But it also says in the scripture, he's the firstborn of many brothers and obviously sisters. By, we know that, brothers and sisters. But what's interesting about that is the angels are, in the book of Enoch, it talks about that the Lord, the God is the Lord of spirits, the God of spirits, the Lord of spirits. In the spirit realm, it's plasma. It's a different species. And they can phase in and out of this reality, just like, they can come in and out of this realm, in this dimension. We see it all the time, whether they're fallen or they're holy. The characters are equal to each. They're capable of doing different things. And it's their heart. You can feel the love and light versus the other side, which is chaos, degradation, and all the opposite of beauty. So if the Lord Jesus came here and he actually he duked it out with Jacob and caused his hip to be problematic there, an angel is not some wispy cloud up in the sky. Yeah, there's different species of different angels, of course. There's some that, that are in those realms and they don't necessarily likely probably come down here. But there are angels that do phase in and out of dimension and they come right here to this realm on earth. So if the Lord himself, prior to him becoming flesh, was known by the angels, those angels that built the Tartarian architecture, the architecture that's characterized as Tartarian, even though I believe it's angelic, but that under Genghis Khan and all that stuff was taken over, and so on and so forth. There's a whole long history into that, but too much to get into. But the essence of it is what's characterized as Tartarian architecture, the beautiful aspects of architecture, compared to that of, what's found in Peru. Not beautiful. Those are fallen beings, in my opinion, that built those structures. There's a different gauge in the way that the light is measured in those in those structures versus
those are the ones that are just really tight-fitting cubes of, square, sawed-off square stone structures, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the same thing with the Cyclopean architecture. There's just a darkness to it. Anyone can perceive, well, I would expect that anyone that's in touch with themselves, they can feel this. They can sense disturbing energy. It's chaotic. It's the obverse of, what do they call it? Discordant energy.
Right.
And of course, look at that, it's the earmark, like Trump, he came out with an executive order, no, you're not building discordant architecture. And as soon as Biden gets in there, boom, he rescinds that. So there's something to be said about the powers of the angelic and in the remnants of this architecture that's left behind. And that architecture that's characterized as Tartarian bears light. And it bears a frequency, and it's a beacon for signals to bring healing into this realm. And I had this long talk to another ambassador about this matter. So, anyways, all this to say is, I said, you know what? So if the angels know what Jesus looks like before he was Jesus in the flesh, he's the Word, I believe they built him into these Tartarian structures. It wasn't exclusively and solely these artists or builders of human origin that went up and put these mosaics, or whatever you want to call them, these beautiful renditions in the Baldaquinos and the Vatican and all this gorgeous, rendition of Christ himself in these cupolas. I do not believe that, I'm not saying that it's not, I'm saying that there are places where humans can do that and have done it. But for the large part, I believe that the architecture that's left behind, if there's a church on every street corner in France, in Saint-Anne-de-Beaupré, and I've been all over the place, and I've seen these structures, and I've felt the feeling going into these buildings, even in St. Patrick's Cathedral. So what I'm saying is that these angels know what the Lord looked like before, and that they knew the story of him coming to bring salvation to humans. This was already organized, that from the foundations of the...
Before the foundations of the world, the plan was in place, and obviously they knew about it ahead of time, because when he came as a baby, the entire heavenly host was there to greet him.
And those wise ones that were schooled in the proper movement of the stars, which was only held back from us due to the fallen angels obfuscating those clocks away from us. Yet the book of Enoch is clear that one who is walking in righteousness can know the patterns of the stars. Like Enoch, he was brought into those mysteries in that last book, the astronomical books. These angels built temples, structures to commemorate this. They call him the angel of the Lord, or the Word, in that realm before he became human, flesh, with our genetics. So that's why they knew what he looked like. That's why he's found in all this architecture. And then by the time he came, it's like, oh, it's a no-brainer. Oh, that's him. They already saw him. They already knew what he looked like. When we die, we look the same too, just, with more glorified aspects, So you can identify after death. Like Luke 16 says, Jesus used the word Lazarus, versus, the rich man. These are real names. These are real people, and they could identify and actually talk about, Saint Abraham. Abraham, what didn't look like, he didn't morph into another personality and say, okay, we don't know what Abraham looks like anymore. No, they knew who he was. There was a way to identify them in the other world, in this other eternal realm. So all that to say is, that's my hypothesis, that not only did the angels build these things, but that they commemorated them to the King of Kings. They already knew who he was, that he's God, before he came here. So, okay, that's kind of deep, but I mean, so this whole rabbit hole, this entire study, the reason it's so important, in my opinion, is because if it's so important to certain parties, which I'll just kind of give a clue, rock, okay, you could put that word together and you'll know which family we're talking about. I'm trying to not say the certain family names, and other family names that were involved, that were friends with that family, that, completely obfuscated truth. And, certain ones in Florida too, that covered up the aspect of Florida being a kingdom. And, so St. Augustine is rife. It's full of angelic technology. It's full of angelic buildings. And those big, huge bells were removed purposely by this family. Flag. Try not to say it. So all that is if they're pulling and they're destroying this technology, or they're taking off the technology off the top of these buildings, and they're removing the bells, and they're not worse than that, they're removing books from the Bible in the same exact time period, and anyone who didn't see the way they saw things, they put them in this insane asylums, and then the children were put in these orphanages, and so now they've got everything nice, neat, tucked away in a perfect package for themselves. Yeah, you don't want to hear, in Russia too, they did the same thing. If you don't want to toe the party line, you're going to that building over there, and you're gonna rot in there. So obviously, these guys are the ones behind a lot of the other stuff that's already happened to us in 2020, which we're not going to get into. So if it's the same ones, then there's no way that they, as human beings, could be solely responsible for what's going on. This is the rise and the fall of certain power, and they were trying to obfuscate, take away the books of the Bible that would tell us where America is moving forward in the kingdom age. They had to destroy and remove these parts of the Bible, at the same time blow apart these buildings and destroy them, because they didn't want anyone to know that we're heading into the kingdom age. This is the real timeline, not the one we were spoon-fed. All these churches that are out there, rapture, go and hide and prepare for the end of days and Antichrist is coming and all that and all of that. Okay, well, no way. No way. This is not the timeline for that. And until we grab those other books of the Bible that were removed and do a full study, like someone else we know that has done this dutifully,
Right.
and concluded the same conclusions I reached in 2013 with you. And I've even I've spent $5,000 or $6,000 and sent it to all the heads of state that I could without breaking my bank, to let them know that this age is upon us, that stone is going to fall in judgment on them. And yes, those powers, those people in those positions of authority received that correspondence, in addition to every congressman, every representative, every senator in the year 2015. They received it due to the good work of so many of our friends that were staying up for 3 days and 3 nights faxing that stuff over. So things are changing, and it's all for the better. And my belief is that I'm just going to have to say it. That gentleman, that Benjamin Thomas, as he was on Eric Metaxas, he's the only one I know of, thanks to you for sending me the link. He's the only one I know of that holds the same belief I've held in my heart. Even though I didn't understand fully, I've talked with people that are, I would say, rabid, into rabid, what do they call them? Rapturist, to the point where it's like, really, that's myopic view is that's all they see is the rapture, the rapture, the rapture. And I'm like, okay, but wait a minute. There's pieces that are missing. What about this? What about that? What about the stone judgment? I've asked these questions, but nobody could answer me. Nobody could answer me.
Yeah, and the more steeped they are, the more they reinforce their own thing, and then they're in an echo chamber where the only thing they listen to is more of the same. So, to alternative viewpoints.
And that's the key. If we could climb out of this mind control that was put upon us by and through the fourth beast that took over all these churches, the fourth beast being Rome, they took over all the churches, at least most of them. And when they took them over, they allowed emphasis on certain parts of the Bible without an even distribution and without even questioning, without the questioning to go into the further details about the outlay of all of those aspects of the seals, all of the aspects of the judgments. I haven't known one that could do it. Now, I'm pleased that whatever pictures I could get from the pastors I did speak with, I believe in earnestness that they did try, and according to their best knowledge, that they tried to put the best piece of the puzzle together, the biggest, tapestry so I could see it. But the problem is even Martin Luther, he had enough decency to not remove those books from that Bible. But the ones that were telling me all the truth about what they knew, they had those books were removed. So by then, they're not focusing in on any of that. Well, okay, you tell me, why do they have to get and blast apart these buildings and cause fires and do all this stuff at the same exact time they're ripping those books out of the Bible? Why is it the same time they're doing that?
Yeah.
It's fishy to me, and it's the same parties that are blowing up the buildings are the same exact parties that are ripping those books out of the Bible. It's the same ones that are behind it. The same ones that were behind 2020 and all that stuff too. It's the same ones.
Same ones behind the upcoming.
The same ones. So we're being careful with what we want to say here because we want to keep the video up. So this is the deal. We're heading into the kingdom age. That is the timeline we're on. And it's going to take an incredible amount of gentleness and love and patience and virtue, with the Holy Spirit to be able to to carefully get these thoughts in an ordered way out to the people, so they can decide, so they can do right, comparison and contrast, and study the word themselves and see if this is, if this is an approved message. Is it approved? Is it true? Or are we all supposed to go and hide in bunkers? No. I don't think so. I have way too much evidence to the contrary regarding that matter. So,
well, Jesus never did advocate just hiding and, keeping your light under a bushel. So.
Sometimes you have to park it under there just to get through for safekeeping. And then once everything kind of rides by, it's like, okay, time to peer out now, So it's been a rough one, but my whole being has always said, like, wait a minute, there's something missing. And I'm not any Bible scholar by any stretch. I'm not claiming that, but I certainly do know the Lord of the Bible. I know Jesus Christ, and I love him, and I love the Holy Spirit, and I love the Father. So I just feel like we're in a special time, and I think it's time for us to really accentuate an awareness on the alternate timelines, that we're headed into a beautiful kingdom age. It's so beautiful, they're going to be like, wait a minute, I got to participate in that. And I think in their own way, the Lord will allow that to happen in their own way. So that's very deep. God's not a God of the dead. He's a God of the living. So anyone up there are not dead. They're living. So that's that. So we'll just have to keep discussing this and go over as we get more nuggets. But I think that's a very important point to make, is to look deeper past what is externally shown. Okay, he's holding a Bible. What does that mean? What is Trump? Why is he holding up that other Bible? What's up with that? There's a reason behind everything.
So you're sure it's not just because it's the only Bible that was on his desk at the time?
I can't imagine that that's the case, because if you're going to go out of your way to make a photo op, there's usually contemplative elements before that's going to be happening. Well,
he obviously didn't warn anybody. The Secret Service was scrambling to keep up with them. It was an impromptu thing, from what I understand. But
yeah, and it was highly criticized from multiple angles. But anytime a certain class of priests that are not of virtue, that are part of an order that backs up that certain family that's been responsible, then I'm going to be looking at it in the obverse. So if media wants me to see it one way, I'm going to look past the appearance of it. That's what it means to be spiritual. What it means to be spiritual means it's when you look past just the surface and go deeper into what's being said. So only because I've seen so many other instances where certain photo ops do take place, well, I've seen many, many others, and it only makes perfect sense. If you're going to go out of your way to make a special statement, then for those who can see and go deeper than just what's shown, I believe that that's what was being pointed out.
Yeah.
The war. And it's us. It's the believer. It's the calling that Luke 16 says. The children of light, Jesus was upset, sad about that. Like he's saying in Luke 16, the children of this world are more wise or more sharp. They're sharper than the children of light.
They're more shrewd.
More shrewd. So, okay, well, the tables are turning. That's what this is about. The tables are turning.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that.